Hello everybody, my name is Robert Crocker. I'm going to be talking about the consumption problem today as an introduction to a series of little talks which closely relate to my book, Somebody Else's Problem, which goes into this in more detail. So consumption is now the engine driving our environmental crisis. Seems a very bold statement, but basically what's happening is we're making more products for more people faster than ever before, and we're wasting them sooner to upgrade and buy more often disposing of things before their life has been completed, while they're still functioning. For example, we're making around 350 million tons of plastics a year, and we're only recycling about 9% of that. And about 8 million tons, probably more, are entering the sea every year. Now there's more plastic fragments in every square kilometre of sea than there are fish. So you've got this, or creatures from the sea. So you have this extraordinarily unsustainable system of production for consumption, which is churning out more things for more people faster. But a lot of this is wasted, and the process of making them, process of wasting them, process of using them is directly linked to climate change. For example, concrete. Look around you. Most cities are built largely of concrete. We consume or make around 22 billion tons a year. And in making this concrete, it probably contributes up to 5% of greenhouse gases. So this sort of hyper-consumption, if you like, of resources, which is very much driven by our expectations and what we regard as normal now, is depleting resources, generating pollution and waste and emissions. But consumption's environmental load is largely hidden by the way we possess things. We think that we choose, and we can choose wisely, and by choosing wisely it'll have some minute impact on the environment. This is largely imaginary and largely told to us by corporations that directly benefit from this. They want us to get that message that choosing wisely will make an impact on the environment, because then they can sell their slightly greener things. But the truth is, we're interested in this because choice in consumption is seen as a road or a pathway to a better life. We buy things to find meaning, for example, a new jumper. We buy things to affirm our status, to gain experience through travel. I'm off to China tomorrow, part of my job. It's the experience which is exciting and interesting, and if I was a man of leisure, I might want to go there as a tourist. So experience is another great motive of consumption. We like to consume things because it gives us a greater sense of control in our own life. You buy a new phone because the camera is better, the facilities on it are it's much more powerful than your previous phone, perhaps. It looks cooler, etc. So this desire for the better and the best available is very, very strong, and drives a lot of consumption. So this little diagram, which I'll put up somewhere, or perhaps I can try and integrate into this video, it shows you how in each domain of our life, often associated with particular possessions like a car, a home, a phone, clothes, food, etc., these domains become, in a way, things that we identify with, and our sense of self, our sense of identity, is really built upon what we possess. If for example, as a university lecturer, I came in looking like a kind of a drunk or a bum with a long, thick beard, you wouldn't trust what I'd say. If I showed up at a meeting of real estate agents and I wasn't wearing a suit, I wouldn't be regarded as normal, as another real estate agent. If I showed up to a business meeting and I was driving an old banger, I'd be incredibly apologetic, explaining to them that my car was being serviced or something, because in each domain or each area of life, there are certain expectations around consumption, certain norms, and these, in a way, lock us into more consumption, depending upon our context and our situation. And behind each of these possessions is a system, a complete system delivering our particular product to us. And these systems are terribly important. We go shopping, for example, for food in the supermarket. We have no idea really where what we're buying comes from. All we have to do is trust the label. If we buy clothes, we trust the brand. If we think the brand is reputable, can actually account for where it comes from, we think, well, we'll go with this brand because we know that it's owned by so-and-so or it's got a good reputation. The same with cars, and computers, and the internet, etc. Each system, we don't really understand. It's like behind a screen, and it's a provisioning system, and we can't really change that system. And yet it's the systems that are generating climate change, and the products we keep buying and throwing away, which are also contributing directly to climate change and to environmental degradation. So systems have sunk costs, that is, irrecoverable investments. It costs billions to establish a network for mobile phones. These become essential to the service we're gaining through them, and these become the norm. For example, driving cars, it was initially a luxury for very wealthy people, for a leisure pursuit. Now it's a standard way of getting around the city. And the individualization we experience with the car means that we own the car, but we think that somehow we have a stake in the road system. Our stake is minute, but what it means is we become dependent on the car and the road system, and to some extent the road system depends upon us. So what I'm trying to get at is we can't blame individuals for their consumption choices, because it's a bit like we're stuck on a railway which says car, and car is not just the object that we possess personally, but it's a whole system which we assume will always be there. In fact, if we had a Maserati and there was no system there, as there might be, say, in some very poor part of the world, we'd just have it to admire. We wouldn't be able to use it properly because the roads would be too bad or too dangerous. So this is the irony, is that possession gives us this delusion of control, of having some stake in a system, when actually it's a minute stake, and all we're doing is contributing to a system which is, in a way, a bucket load of environmental problems. So, for example, let's look at the coffee cup. Takeaway coffee. There are 500 billion of these little objects made a year. They involve huge amounts of trees, and inside the paper is a polyethylene plastic lining. We focus on the coffee that it contains, the aroma, its origins, its pure origins as organic, etc., a good brand, a good roast. But we completely overlook the system that is delivering us this wonderful product, this exotic product from the East. We think takeaway cups are just normal now, but they're actually very good for business, because a business selling coffee in these cups can sell more coffee to more people more quickly. And in a sense, by taking up this habit, we become locked in into a form of waste-making consumption, which involves resource overuse, where we're using things that aren't recyclable that then become waste. So blaming the consumer in this system where everyone around you is doing the same thing is ridiculous. It's a way of saying, well, if you understand the problem, you shouldn't engage with it. But how many people really understand this background when nobody wants to admit it, nobody wants to talk about it? Are you going to blame the really poor people for dropping rubbish on the road in Indonesia when there's no formal waste collection system? So the whole idea of scapegoating the consumer, of making the consumer feel as though they're responsible, is a delusion. And it's a delusion because it enables the people who are making all this stuff that is so problematic to, in a way, hide behind consumerism, behind choice. So that's the first point I really want to make in this series of talks. So individualization is essential to consumerism, but it requires deception. And this deception involves concealing the unsustainable system and its impacts behind choice. And but really the system is like a couple of railway lines that we're stuck on. If we live in a city, for example, without public transit or very poor or dangerous transit, then we drive if we can afford it. Now, are you going to blame people for making that choice? Should they heroically get on their bicycle and get killed, possibly in the heavy traffic? The issue is really we need to commit ourselves to changing these systems, and we need to stop blaming the individual. It's a game that really is part of consumerism itself. That is, I'm cooler than you are. I have a greener shirt, a greener car, a greener house. Yeah? And the thing is, really what that says is that I can afford it and that I can understand it when everyone else can't. And that's what we have to change. We have to improve their understanding and their knowledge of how everything works, and we have to force the people who create the problems to be more transparent. Thank you.